Going on, watch enthusiasts? Happy Saturday. Figured I'd just come here on live, man. And today's title is I got questions, man. I got some questions for you enthusiasts. There's a bunch of things that have been dancing around in my head. I'm sorry if it's kind of windy today. I don't have the little thing that covers the mic here to muffle some of this wind, so I apologize ahead of time if it's windy. We're out here at the beach, and I figured I'd just go live real quick and ask you guys some questions, some things that I've been thinking about recently, random stuff that has come to my mind, and I thought it'd be fun just to ask you guys, connect, have this conversation and go back and forth. We don't have anybody in the room just yet, but, I'm gonna go ahead and kick things off. And of course, we gotta show you the wristwatch check. So I believe the 22nd is the last day officially for summer here in New York. So I've got my G-Shock Square. And it's part of some of the questions that I have for you guys in the mix of things. And unfortunately, I don't have like my full collection that I bring out here and I show you, but I have some questions nonetheless. And I'm gonna answer these questions, and if people come in, if you're in the playback, you might just hear me rant. This is kind of like a random live, nothing was scheduled programming, but interesting time to be enthusiast. Lots of releases going on. Of course, we can make a whole segment about the watch releases that have been taking place and going on, but I have some random thoughts and I thought I'd share it with you guys. So the first thing I want to say is, watch collecting. So I want to talk about some things that happen with you guys in your collection and things that go back and forth with that. Hang on one second. Let me pull up the notes. We might have a little bit of a technical difficulty here. Hang on one second. Let me bring the notes. Here we go. All right, so do you own a watch in your collection that is attached to a childhood reason why you purchased the watch? Patek Philippe, what's going on, brother? Do you own a watch collection? And it's funny, the watch I'm wearing today actually coincides with this question, because I for sure got this watch out of a childhood thing. I have another watch that I'm going to talk about that I got for a different reason. But the first one was time to grow, big. Time to grow, absolutely. The only question I got for you, Skylar, is how you been, bro? I've been good, man. I've been blessed. Thank God, man. I woke up this morning. That's already a win. And then I comment to say that the whole, I was waiting to hear about the Archie verse. Yeah. I know. So he goes live. Archie goes live a lot. I definitely am interested to hop on there and talk microbrand, talk about more than just microbrands. I'm sure for the most part, microbrands is going to be a hot topic on Archie's channel. I'm definitely stoked to get up on there. It's just the timing hasn't been, man. Like, as you can see, when I do these lives, I go in randomly, and it's just because that's the random time that I can. I have a pretty busy schedule, and most of the time that he's on, it's just not a good time for me. But hopefully, if Archie does go live, Archie Luxury goes live in the morning, and I catch it, I'll definitely randomly just pop up there, and it won't be the only time that I do it. I definitely want to do collaborations and do lives with other watch collectors. He actually commented on the video that came out today that was a review. So big shout out to Archie, man. It's all love, and I definitely want to get on there. I know, Patel, you've been rooting for me to hop on, and I promise you, just for you, bro, I'm gonna make sure that I do catch him on one of his lives for sure. Yeah, bro, anytime works for you. We'd love to see it. Yeah, bro, and I'll tell you what, it's not going to be the only time, man. You're going to see a lot of collaborations, especially towards the winter time. Summertime and fall are kind of a little bit busy for me in my industry and my business, my daytime job, if you will. So we'll definitely get up on there. But I got some questions now that a couple of you guys are in here. And the first question, if you missed it, is, do you own a watch in your collection that you admired as a kid, but later obtained it as an adult? And my two examples in my collection is this G-Shock that I'm wearing, right? Now, this wasn't the G-Shock that I actually admired as a kid. I actually admired the one with the little button in the middle, that's the light, but it was all white. And when I saw it, I wasn't really into watches. I wore watches a couple of times as a kid, but it was the look. It was super clean, it was G-Shock, it was robust. So I wanted to add that to my collection later when I started collecting, looking back, and it was the reason why I got the skin for it, right? I got the all white and everything else for that summertime vibe, and it brings me back to my childhood memory immediately, and I love it. And a second example that I have for you guys is my Movado Bolt. So I remember I grew up in Brooklyn, and there was a place on 86th Street. It was an AD. They always used to have the Movado Bolts at the window. And as a kid, I'd walk by, I don't know, a billion times, and I'd see that Movado Bolt in the window. And as a kid, I'm like, man, that for me looked like a super expensive watch. It looked super just luxury, expensive, and the way it was displayed. And I remember like the simplicity, the minimalistic look to the Movado Bolt. And I can recall today. So I actually got that as a gift from my mother. You guys seen it on the channel if you've seen my stated collection. It's the rose gold one, simple, minimalistic, that classic look. And I actually put that in my collection. So I was curious if you guys have put watches in your collections after the fact, right? If you've been collecting as a young kid, maybe you already had the watch or you had the watch since you were a kid. But do you have any watches in your collection that were like, okay, now that I'm a collector, looking back, I always saw that watch, like how I did for the G-Shock and for the Movado Bolt, and put that in your collection? Space G, what's going on? You did hit me up, you DM me for just picking my mind on things, brother. We'll definitely talk for sure. Probably right after this live when I get home, I'll hit you back and everything else. But yeah, man, I'm just curious if any other you enthusiasts have watches in your collections connected to your childhood, if you were able to put it on there. My second thing I want to ask you guys, and we're gonna keep going along. The second thing I want to ask you guys is emergency watch. So do you guys have a watch that you either leave in the car, maybe you leave it in the office, I don't know, just somewhere accessible in case you leave the house without a watch, which sounds absolutely crazy for us, but actually today, no cap, today, gang, I left the house and I was just in my mind, I was ready to go to my watch box. I was gonna put this watch on, and I actually got to the car, warming it up, waiting for wifey to come down, and I forgot the watch. But I do have a backup watch in my work truck just in case. And it just put in my head, like, do you guys have an emergency watch for those situations where you're like, oh man? And I've heard other enthusiasts talk about this, and maybe it's like a super affordable watch that you don't really care about, that you just leave in the car, like maybe an F91W, you know, just something of the sorts. Now, the watch that I keep is not necessarily, it's actually, so I rotate the watch that I have as my emergency watch. It's actually a stainless steel sports watch, you know, and I keep that as an emergency. And it would have came in handy today if wifey already came down. So I'm pretty sure you guys also do it too. My Bulova definitely fits that description. Childhood, is that a childhood? Which Bulova space? Which one did you admire as a kid and later put in as an adult, brother? So I think the emergency watch is pretty important for that reason, right? As much as because man, I felt naked. I was like, oh man, you know, you see that spot where that watch sits, and it's just like it's a lighter tone than the rest of your skin. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. But luckily, like I said, the wife came down. But if not, I would have had the watch in the car. I keep it in the rest. It's in a leather, whatever, a leather holder, leather pouch, if you will, single one. And I was prepared in case that would happen. Got another question for you guys, man. I'm gonna keep going. Do you have a redemption watch? Is there a watch that during the course of your collecting, you went back and said, okay, I wasn't able to get this watch when it came out. I missed out. Maybe it's discontinued. Maybe you get a homage of it. Maybe you come across the used model. What is the redemption watch that you guys have? And again, I wish I had a couple of pieces to show you guys, but I have more questions than I can carry in watches. I have a thing that's like a watch roll of 6 watches. And today I came out with nothing. So, you know, I'll give you guys examples. I'm sure you've seen it. Either I've done a review or I post about it, but yeah. So what is the redemption watch in your collection? And that's easy for me, man. The SK, so the SKX 007 is one of them, right? As you guys know, it got discontinued. And it's funny how I perceive it as a missed opportunity. because technically I did get the 009, and that could have been considered to be, I didn't really miss out on it, but I remember wanting the original and settling for the 009, right? I still like the look of it. I knew I was gonna change the bezel and I was happy with it. And I actually forgot about it, right? But then my man JP, you guys know Dad Mod's watches, he came out with a watch that's very similar to the SKX 007, has a little Sin DNA in there as well. And it gave me that kind of feel for like, okay, this makes me feel like I'm going back and I'm getting that 007 without having to directly get it. And that watch is easily one of the most popular watches, especially through Chinese manufacturing. That is, you can find a whole bunch of them on AliExpress. There's a whole bunch of different companies that make a version of it. Island Watches makes a fantastic SKX. In fact, my man Mark actually gives us the SKX 007 upgrade that we should have got, right? When instead of the Seiko 5s coming out and losing some water resistance, and there was a couple of other features that kind of went backwards. We see that a lot. A lot of companies will take something like the Duro, the SKX, the Sarb. The Sarb, not so much. I think the Sarb was okay. I don't think that the original one had the Cyclops. That's my only qualm, but that's up for debate. But we see a lot of companies do re-releases, and it's not exactly what we would, I mean, listen, all you gotta do is go to the forums, go to the posts, join communities, ask exactly what you're looking for as far as the evolution goes. So it's a little frustrating when bigger companies, especially Seiko, doesn't give us exactly, sorry about the noise guys, it doesn't give us exactly what we're looking for on the next one, you know what I mean? So Dad's Mods is the man. JP is definitely, now JP just released, hey man, I don't want to talk crazy, but JP just released a Montreux strap video. I didn't get to finish it, but it looks like my man took out the hard book on that one, man. It looks like he gave it a firm hand, and I gotta watch the video fully, but what JP's doing for his release, super excited for. So I feel blessed that he even chose me to really, you know, be the person to bounce things off of and bounce ideas. And seeing another micro brand being released and knowing his background, having a relationship already with him is exciting stuff. Hi, ho, Silver Lone Rangers in the building. What's up, brother? So yeah, Dad Mods is coming out with some, and I don't want to release anything. I'm not going to, out of respect for him, but I'm telling you guys right now, whatever you have seen from him already, he's got more, man. He's got more in store. You guys should plug in and really pay attention to what he's doing, because he's already got things in the work. And that was one of the things I discussed with him. I said, listen, you're coming out with a micro brand, you want to pour a lot of attention to your first release. That's most important. Of course, you're getting your feet wet, you're getting your foot in the door. But I'm telling you something, man, have ideas for the next one. Because the worst thing that can happen is if you do take off, right, people are going to be hungry. We're used to, as much as we're getting drowned right now in the watch community with new releases, which makes sense, right? I'm not complaining. At the same time, it's a little bit of an information overload, but, you know, it just gives us a lot of stuff to reflect on, a lot of stuff to look forward to. And it makes sense because especially in the micro brand space, everybody's preparing for the show, right? New York's going to be one of the biggest shows. So obviously they probably want to talk about something new, something fresh, what they're working on. That's going to be the first question. So why not have a watch ready to present to us at the show? So it all lines up and it makes sense. But yeah, man, Dad Mods, he's got some things going, kicking the door. Yeah, absolutely, man. He's definitely kicking in the door, and he's been in the game enough. I think he's plugged into the community enough to really rock the boat, if you will. So yeah, guys, so the Redemption watch for me was definitely his first release that he's working on. It's going to be my SKX 007 Redemption. But then my Namoki, right? I just showed you guys the Namoki, and I got some exciting news about that. Somebody's actually gonna lend me their Sarb. What is it? Is it the Sarb? Is it still SARB 121? It's the newer one to it. They're actually gonna lend me their watch to it, and we're gonna get a comparison, man. We're gonna get a compare and contrast. Now, I don't want to compare the actual original model that it was supposed to replace, because you can't get that anymore brand new. At this point, if you go to Seiko's Prospects, you could get the Alpinist in a newer version, and that's the one that I'm getting. So shout out to my man that's sending it out. I don't know if he wants me to mention his name. I'm sure he doesn't mind, but I hit him up on Watch Crunch. I'm like, yo, listen, let me hold that for a minute. I want to do a comparison. And my original thing was to take the Nomoki watch that I have and just do like a deep dive, do a review. But I felt like, you know what? I feel like as an enthusiast myself, a comparison, especially something that is pretty much a one-for-one, right? The Nomoki Alpine is the one-for-one for the Alpinist minus the logo on it, that little X. So that was a redemption watch for the SARB 017 for me. And that's my version of the homage, right? And I'm okay with it. Well, actually, technically, both watches could be considered a homage. And I'm okay with that because as long as it's built quality, as long as it's enough, you know, recognition or nod or scratch the itch, if you will. And I could go the route of buying it used and buying an older one, but for me, I'd rather have it brand new, and I'm okay with it being close to. So the Alpinist and the Alpine, man, that was a home run from Nomoki. Super smart to make that a watch kit instead of just offering it. So, I mean, at least for me, it was like a kind of romantic thing to be able to not only have something that's called a redemption watch for me for the Alpinist, but to be able to put it together. And yo, super thin. It's made for thin. I think it's like a 10 millimeter or 10.5 millimeter. It's just gorgeous and it's well done. They have phenomenal parts. Nomoki does it absolutely right. And I actually seen somebody who, another creator who normally does builds from AliExpress. He actually did a collab with Nomoki and he said the same thing, man. He said, listen, I built a couple of AliExpress custom watches and Nomoki brand parts, you definitely feel the difference, especially in the bracelet. I've talked to you guys about the crown feeling a little different usually when it comes to that, so it definitely was it. So I'm wristfully ignorant. Yeah, Space, shout out to my man Space G's in the chat right now. He's wristfully ignorant. Not a shameless plug, bro. I actually was one of the people that pushed you to start your channel. Listen, the watch community needs more people to hop on here and share their ideas. It's not easy, man. Like even pressing live today I'll be completely honest with you. It's not easy just coming up on here and talking watches and thinking of ideas and everything else. But that comes in time, right? There'll be a time where I'll get on here and I'll be as smooth as Trap on his lives. But the watch space, the watch community, as much as it feels saturated now with reviewers, because I've heard that too. I've heard that, you know, there's too many reviewers now, right? And I think that's a case of us being so absorbed into this hobby, because we got to remember, always remember, gang, outside of this small world in these small communities, and I say small because pass by anybody on the street and how many people are wearing watches, and even if they're wearing a watch, how many of them are this nerdy about it? How many of them are this enthusiastic about it and really want to dive deep into watches? There's not many. For every 10 to 15, maybe even it's 20, one person is an actual die-hard enthusiast. So I say this. I say that if you're thinking about coming on and saying something on YouTube or starting a channel, do so. My man Space G, which is Wristfully Ignorant, that's his channel. Check him out. He's already working on some stuff. He's already picking the minds of other people. I have a feeling, and listen, bro, even if you you know how I started off, baby. It was like this. It wasn't even like, horizontal. It was vertical. It was inside of a car. It was horrible, right? My first videos are terrible. I got better though, and that's all that really matters, man. Nobody's gonna be watching those first 10 videos that you make. So if you're thinking about jumping on live or making content, whatever it may be, right? You don't have to go the route of any particular way. I just so happen to do reviews, modding, interviews. I work in a plethora of things because I feel very comfortable in doing so. It's part of the value on how I wanted to tackle this. Lives was never part of the deal. I never would have thought I'd be like, who am I to get on a live and talk watches? But I'm a guy. I'm like you guys. I'm an enthusiast. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm talking, and it's just it's fun. It's nice to have somebody jump on, because I jump on a bunch of lives, man, and they'll chit chat. It'll go inside and outside of watches, and it's a vibe. It's like it's something better than watching a 5-minute review. Then you gotta look for the next video, and sometimes I just want to throw something on that's a half an hour long, and sometimes I'm modding or something like that. So I know how it works. And that's the reason why I'm up here, you know what I mean? All right, anyway, so some other questions I got for you guys. Sorry about the wind, guys, if it's noisy. Will your watch collection feel incomplete if you don't have a birth year watch? How important, because it's like when you learn the term beater watch, or if you weren't into divers and you learn about divers, or you learn about pilots, like, you know how it was in the beginning when we first started collecting. We were like, okay. And then you hear birth year watch. Do you guys aspire to add a birth year watch, or have you added one already after collecting for some time to your collection? Is that something that excites you? Because I'll tell you what, man, it happened to me by accident. The F91W just so happened to realize after I purchased it that it came out in '89. So I was like, oh man, after looking at vintage watches and stuff I wasn't really comfortable with, and what's discontinued, because it's hard, right? Like, if I want a watch that was made or started in '89, 35 years later, chances are they're not making the watch, and or it just hit its vintage stage where they're going to discontinue. It's time for a refresh. So when I found out the F91W, which they just had changed the look of it, which honestly, it's not for me. It's obvious that the new Casio F91Ws are more targeted to like the younger group. They're trying to make it look more Apple-ish, you know, more monotone, less of that vintage look to it, which is crazy, because a lot of the kids nowadays, they're looking at my era and they're like, oh, that stuff is cool, that look is cool. So it's kind of going back to that. So it's crazy that now they're trying to fit that mold. But yeah, I always danced with the idea. I never made it like priority one, but it just so happened when I got the F91W, I was like, okay, cool. This was made in '89, fresh. I'm gonna definitely be happier about that, it being in my collection. So I definitely want a 1977 birth year watch in my future. Yeah, that's what I mean, man. And in that case, you might have to go vintage space. Because I don't think that any watch that was made then, I'm not trying to make fun of you, bro, I'm just saying, I don't think any watch that was made then is still being made, you know. I think I just lucked out with the F91W, super simple, right? And I was okay with it. I was ready for that size of a watch later in life, because in the beginning, I like things super big. I like things robust. I was putting more Invictus in my collection, and I just wasn't comfortable with smaller watches, but I was ready for it. I knew I wanted to do like a small, simple mod to it. And then when I found out that it was an '89, I was like, cool. And I also wanted to do a review on it, right? Because I saw it's almost like a rite of passage. Not really. I could do whatever I want. But at the end of the day, I saw a lot of people somewhere along the way did a review, or their style of a review, on the F91W, had plans to do a modification for it, combine the two, and there you have it. I have a birth year watch. So I was super happy about that. So what's next? What's next? F91W. Watch collecting. Ooh, this is a good question. All right, so this one I really want to hear from you, enthusiast. Watch collecting in a recession. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but we in a recession, baby. And you may not think so, but I think so. Cost of living is crazy. We're not going to get political here, but it is relative, because at day's end, watch buying, watch collecting, at least for me, is not first on my list of responsibilities, as it shouldn't be. So now that we're entering this recession, now that everything is so expensive, man, rent is expensive, buying food, it's just my wife and I, man. The food is like 200 plus for groceries. Rent went up. It's kind of crazy, right? So what do you guys see happening as far as the recession goes? Like, how is that going to shape things differently from you? Is that going to slow down your watch buying? And let me go back to the notes, because I had a specific point to that. Will affordable watches become even more attractive to those who are buying close to 1K plus watches? This, combined with Chinese manufacturing getting better, as we know, not only the independent brand level, but yet whatever is close to it. So, you know, there's a lot to that, right? We're seeing, I'm seeing Chinese manufacturing, and I guess the most generic example of that is San Martin, right? Everybody knows San Martin. Everybody knows about their finishing. There's been a plethora of different videos about how well that they do their finishing and everything else. So do you guys think that people are gonna obviously, because of the way things are, knock back down their cost and what they're gonna spend? And are affordable watches gonna be more attractive because of that, being that most of the time you're not sacrificing quality anymore, right? The Chinese manufacturing for watches is getting really, really good. And it's getting available because as that market grows, here's the deal. And I don't know this for facts, right? But San Martin obviously has a manufacturer. They're making their cases, they're making parts. Whoever's making their parts, and we don't have to use San Martin. We could use anybody else. I think Bolton is another one that's doing well. Steel Dive. They're doing good watches. So chances are they're getting it from the same place. And so there's opportunity for other brands to surface up, which is what we've been seeing over the last 2 years tremendously. And now you're spending $100, $150, $200, sub three, let's say, and you're getting a good watch. And it's argumentative. A lot of people will feel like, well, that's just mass produced. Watch the reviews, man. Look at the reviews. Look at the watches that reviewers are bringing into their channel and reviewing. And I'm having first-hand experience with not only micro brands, but the Chinese manufacturing as far as watches go. And it's getting to the point where they're also adding the features like micro brands into the watches as starting level where it's super affordable. So I don't know. Somebody who spends sub 1,000 is going to have a lot more options, even more so in today's day and age. So is that going to affect how you guys buy? For me personally, I think that it doesn't really matter. I know that I've slowed down my watch collecting. Whatever I add as far as what I'm reaching for and stuff, like I don't even have anything on target at the moment. I'm kind of just soaking everything in. I got events that I want to go to. I got people that I want to talk to. I got watches that I want to put in my hand. And I want it to really generate from there. I don't want it to be like I'm getting excited by a review or get excited by something else too much and then make my decision. I want to get hands-on. I want to do some homework. I want to learn about movements. So it's definitely a type of thing. Seagus watches are, yes, that's another watch. That's another watch. I've seen Seagus a lot, Seagull a lot. They're definitely utilizing that affordable movement. Bigger size. You see a lot in pilot watches. You see it a lot in, what is that called? The 1963, I think it's called. When you go live, baby, you're on the spot. It's hard to rack the mind. Before I go live, I'll be thinking about things and everything just pops in my head. But when I go live, I'm like, the Seagull, 1960, it has to be the 1963. That's the only year that comes in. So you're seeing a lot with that movement. It's affordable. That's another good example for sure. And we're just seeing that circulate so much. And I think that now that things are tight, and who knows, I hope not. I hope things improve. But at day's end, we're seeing a lot of evolution with watch brands, independent brands, and they're coming out with all these new releases and everything else. But the wallet's getting tight. The options for me, I think, are going to become a little bit more limited to people because at the end of the day, we still are excited to add things into our collection. So I think at least the consideration shift for somebody who was dancing with the idea, somebody who doesn't want that at all, that's different. But somebody who is dancing with the idea is going to say, okay, cool. This is how much. I can add that to my collection and I could wait for the other piece later on. You know what I mean? Seagull is limited to the ST19 movement. Yes, absolutely, it is. And, you know, you can go through Seagull directly to get that watch. It's hundreds of dollars more versus the AliExpress. You guys seen my comparison video. So, you know, there are companies out there. And listen, you got to be careful with that because that Seagull 1963 is copied and it's made very poorly. Well, how do I know which one is which? Chances are, hear me out, if you go on AliExpress and you see a long purchase history and a lot of good reviews, that's one of the better qualities that you can go for. I don't necessarily recommend specific stores from there because the stores go in and out. Most likely, if they're selling a lot of watches, they're not going to, but it's hard to keep up with that, so I don't. But if you go on AliExpress, you could see that watch being done in many different iterations with that movement being super affordable. It's kind of like the NH35 version of a chronograph mechanical. So I'm seeing that come up a lot. Yes, the 1963 Pilot watch, everyone should own one. Yeah, man, I definitely put that in my collection because I saw a lot of people had it, man. I was in the very beginning stages of my collecting. I wanted what everybody else was talking about. And I'm being honest with you guys. I didn't have a mind of my own. I didn't know squat about watches. So I didn't feel comfortable. If I'm purchasing a watch online, especially, like, I know what design I like, right? But I don't really know what's the watch, what's the cult classic, what's a watch that has a community following behind it. So a lot of my watches, even still, as you guys have seen, are watches that everybody knows about. The SKX, the Duro, Tissot PRX, and we'll talk about the Tissot PRX too, I think. Seagull, Bulova Luna Pilot. Just, I have a lot of those watches. And listen, and I don't regret it because I didn't get steered the wrong way, thankfully. And I didn't just watch one video and pull the trigger on it. I watched multiple videos. I watched what people were seeing on the community. I found Watch Crunch. I saw what people were putting on the wrist. So in the very beginning stages, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't even know, obviously, about a mechanical watch. So I was like, okay, what watches, the cult classic, what watches are really like legendary status or whatever the case may be. So that was the route that I took. And I for sure think that a 1963 is a great watch for anybody's collection, especially if you're looking for a mechanical, affordable watch. If you're getting used to winding a watch, not overwinding it, having the chrono function, looking at that nice finished movement, it's a home run. And you have two options. You can go to Seagull directly. It's more expensive, but that may be your route because you say, okay, I want the company that originally made the watch and has the heritage for it and give it its respect. By all means, go that route. But if not, then, you can go with the homage style one. Not limited to, they are limited production. Not limited to, they are limited production of the ST19. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, Space, how limited that is because at the end of the day, they certify other manufacturers to produce the movement and they're okay with it. So at the same time, it's kind of like a Seiko movement, right? It's like kind of like an NH35. They kind of like, go ahead, make your watch around it. A lot of them have realized that watch, the 1963, everybody is attracted to, so they made their own version of it. How did they get away with that? I don't know. How are they okay with it? I don't know. Obviously, they're getting a kickback, right? Seagull's got to be getting a kickback from giving the blessings to make that movement. So they may say, like, that's the way for us. All right, so would you purchase a watch just because it was featured in your favorite movie? Oh, okay. I'm reading my own question. Would you guys, this is the next question, and this one I already know of the watch, but would you guys purchase a watch just because it's featured in your favorite movie of all time? So, like, that's a personal experience that I could share with you guys as well. And some of you may know it. The Seiko Arnie, right? Favorite movie of all time, favorite childhood memory of all time, Predator. So he was wearing that watch, had to have it. Obviously, it's not the exact one, it's the one that they made later, but yeah, I honestly, I was happy that I saw good reviews of it. And not that I expected it not to be a good watch, but once I found out that that was the watch he wore in that movie, and I didn't even realize that he was wearing that watch. As many times as I watched that movie, and even when I became an enthusiast, watching the original Predator, I never even realized but then everybody was saying Seiko Arnie. I was like, okay, this is a watch that Arnold wears. Why is it called the Seiko Arnie though? Oh, because he wore it in these films. And I said, what film? Predator. I was like, get out of here. I need that watch. I need that watch yesterday. I don't care how much. I don't care if it fits my wrist, because in my mind, I was like, that watch has to be huge to fit on his wrists. But thankfully, that watch actually wears, despite its dimensions, the dimensions makes it feel like it's a humongous watch. But despite its dimensions, it fits very nice. The cuts of the case, that tuna style case, is actually not that big. So on my wrist, 7.25 inch wrist, it fits perfectly, and it's a banger watch. Like, and they've done a couple of iterations, but I've got the one closest to the original, and that for me was like a super, super big connection. And I don't know if it is like that for you guys, getting a watch that's connected to your favorite movie after becoming an enthusiast. But I remember being super fired up about that watch. I think that that's the only one that I really was after. There's a whole bunch of watches out there that have become a thing because actors wear them. Depending on whether or not you like the film or you like the watch or you think the watch is cool, whatever the case may be. But for me, it was just the Seiko Arnie, and I added that to my collection, and I've never been happier with that for sure. What would you, okay, so I said we're gonna get to the PRX, so we're getting to it. What would you, okay, so let's talk about it, man. The PRX, Powermatic 80. Let's clear the air, man. Let's clear the air. So I wrote here, is it or is it not serviceable? Now, here's the deal. I know that technically, I think it's in the mainspring. The certain kind of mainspring that they use is not deemed to be serviceable. I think Tissot said that they pretty much replace the movement if there's any issues. And I know that you can't regulate the watch. So we heard all about it. It's been out there for a while. It's got its, viewpoints because of that. But I'll tell you what, guys, I'll tell you something, man. As I've matured as a collector, like, obviously you hear this a lot, buy watches for you, and it couldn't be even more true. And I'll admit that I was feeling a little sad about there being some negative feedback for that watch, because it was just one of those things where I saw it and I was like, okay, this is like the step into Swiss brands. It's like the step into luxury. It's definitely a luxury watch for me. And if you ever wondered what the definition of luxury was, the Tissot PRX is luxury to me. Swiss made, Swiss company. Fantastic, man. As far as like the movement being accurate and everything else, I haven't had any issues with it. I rotate my watches tremendously because I have about 40 watches, so I probably wear one every 2 to 3 weeks. But I had that watch purchase attached to a fond memory, right? It was attached to a point in my life where I made a certain place in my career, and my reward was that watch. And for me, it was luxury. And one thing that nobody can really argue is the bracelet with it. That integrated bracelet is butter. It's butter, and it fits the wrist very nicely. It's kind of, I can't say it's a strap monster because obviously you need a specific strap to it. But if you get that specific strap in a sailcloth, or you get it in a rubber, or you get whatever you put on it, it's very, very nice. Now, I haven't seen if there's a leather version of it. I think that watch would be sick on leather, in particularly. But yeah, so the PRX for me, Powermatic 80, is a luxury. That's my definition of what luxury is. Oscar's in the building. What's going on, brother? Good afternoon. And here's the deal. For me, it's a little different because I look at it this way. If and when, or more likely when, that watch needs a service, I'm going to change the movement out. I have the option to change the movement out myself. I probably won't do that because I don't want to risk messing up anything else. So maybe I buy the movement and I bring it to a watchmaker and I see how much they'll charge just to swap the movement. Maybe I bring it back to Tissot. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, man, I let the idea and I let the notion go of the Tissot Powermatic 80 being a bad thing by its known issues. Not issues with the movement, just its limited things about the movement. I know a lot of people are like, man, I want a watch that can actually be serviced, no problem, and this, and that. At the end of the day, anything could be serviced, even if you consider it, even if you have to swap out the movement, it's still considered a service, right? In my eyes. And I know that there's a lot of romantic ideas to wanting the exact machine that was in your watch, but I feel like everything else, for me, in a movement, in a watch, except for the movement, is what I'm really attached to. Like if the hands on the watch patina, if the dial patinas, if that's what you see, you don't see the movement, right? So for me, if you give me a brand new movement in a 20-year-old watch, I'm okay with that, right? It's not a big deal, and if it's easier and it's more affordable to go that route, I'm okay with that. So that's where I landed. I made my peace with the PRX, and again, that watch for me was 100% luxury. It's attached to a point in my life where I'll always remember and always reflect in, and I like the classy look to it, and they've done very well with it. I mean, you guys have seen the new releases with the chrono. You've seen a whole bunch of different colorways. They're taking that and they're running with it. I think that they're doing a good job with giving iterations. Is it a little bit too much? Maybe, but to see it turn into now a chronograph, to see different styles with it, I think they're headed in the right direction. And if it's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. Fun watches. That's my next topic. Fun watches. Fun watches. Okay, so here's the deal. I don't know exactly where I want to go with the conversation of fun watches, but I wanted to talk about it because there's a lot of people who add, and there's different ways to go about a fun watch, right? And the easiest one to pull out of the air, the low-hanging fruit, is the Moon Swatch, right? That was a total fun watch. It's not a watch, it's not a beater watch, it's not a watch you could wear every day. Like, everyone knows that watch you don't play football in, right? But that being said, look how much that they sold, look how much fun people have with them. And there's other watches and other routes that you can go with. And if that sacrifice of quality isn't for you, there are so many different routes that you can go with. This conversation can go in many different ways. I just saw a video from Shane from Relative Time. He got a Mr. Jones watch, like that monster that's eating like the date time, the cookie or whatever. And that's in his collection. And he pushed off doing the review. He just released it. I think that was his last video. And it's a well-made watch, right? Like, fun watches don't have to just be watches that are cheap, that maybe won't last a very long time, or they can be, right? If you know what you're getting into and you're okay with it, it doesn't really matter. So fun watches are a definite topic. And one name that I had written down there that really spoke to me as far as feeling like it's a fun watch is Studio Underdog. I feel like Studio Underdog has taken the idea of a fun watch and has brought it to that serious level where you're getting a serious movement in it. You know, he has multiple designs, he has multiple iterations of it, and he's done very well. He didn't just harp on the first release, he's done multiple releases but the colors are all fun. It's a stainless steel watch. It's got a good movement in it, and it's well made. So, you know, he got the pizza watch. There's just so many different ways to go about it, and it's no wrong or right way. But, you know, I think that's like another section of a category for watches. And even though we're grown people, even though we're adults, there's still a lot of space to have fun watches. Obviously, they don't have to be expensive because a lot of them run off of like, it feels sometimes like a money grab, but a G-Shock and an all-white fun watch. There's so many different ways to go about it. And like I said, I really like and I really watch Studio Underdog's watches because they have that quality, but their watches still feel fun. Mr. Jones watches is another. He's got the Space Invader one. He's got the monster eating the cookie. And totally fun, stainless steel, and you could just bring it down to that level. All right, so this is gonna be the how long are we on here for? 43 minutes? Yeah, this is gonna probably be the last one. Hey, Oscar, it's me, Space G, check it out later. Yeah, so if you're checking out the chat now, this is Space G's new channel, Wristful Ignorance. He's definitely got some stuff for us in store. He's gonna be coming out with some good stuff. G-Shock is loaded, yeah. G-Shock is definitely super fun. You can do modifications to it. You could change out the band and everything else. So G-Shock is definitely one of the funnest ways and affordable ways to go about watches. All right, so my last thing is this. What methods do you have to control your watch buying urges? And I'll explain to you guys some of the things that I like to do, all right? I like to talk about watches in the watch community, right? Being part of Watch Crunch and hosting the photography challenge is one thing for me to do. We have fun with the watches that we own. We take pictures based off of whatever the week's theme is. So it's something to distract you instead of thinking about the next purchase, the next buy. And it's okay if you have something in your target and it's something that you want to add, but I think we can all agree that most of us in the beginning buy too fast, and it comes a time where it's like, okay, how can I control this? How can I have fun? How can I expand in the hobby? This way, it's not just about buying and spending money to add something to your collection. We're having fun with the watches. We're connecting to people, which is the biggest thing. And it's why I mentioned the community being the first thing. Me taking on hosting the photography challenge in Watch Crunch was part of that, right? Just having some fun, kicking back, and going about it that route. You know what I mean? Watch building was another thing for me. Modifying, changing out a couple of pieces, taking the bezels out, starting with exterior stuff to the watch where I wasn't compromising the movement. I wasn't worried about destroying it and stuff like that. And slowly graduating to going into the inside of the watch and doing all the other kind of modifications for it. That has been tremendously, now I'm still buying when it comes to that, right? You still got to buy the parts. You still got to do some spending. There are affordable routes, whether you go with AliExpress or you go with Namoki Mods or you go with another brand or something like that. But at the very least, it's not just like putting your credit card in, getting the watch, going on the honeymoon phase, falling off the honeymoon phase, and then moving on, right? The cyclic kind of thing that we have. When you build a watch, A, it takes you time. B, I feel like when you complete that watch, you go through the honeymoon phase, but it's a little different in that you're a little bit more proudful of what you built. And I feel like that honeymoon is extended to a certain extent, and it may lead to your next build, but it will take you time to put that watch together, like I said, and I feel like the honeymoon phase is extended. So there's other subcategories underneath watch collecting that you can add to it just to kind of slow down and kind of wrap your mind around it. It's such a supportive community. Yeah, absolutely, Space. So Watch Crunch has been super supportive. It's not just about the photography challenge that I mentioned. You have watch meetups, you have watch conversations. Joining a community in general is something that is definitely worth doing, where you can kind of distract yourself and make it more than just buying watches. But I have to say, Watch Crunch has been the most positive community that I've come across, most productive community. Learned a lot, met a lot of great people. A lot of people on here now are from Watch Crunch, so that's just an example of it. But finding a community and doing watch meetups are super important, because that human connection and that relationship really amplifies and also distracts yourself from just trying to fill up your watch box, right? Because that shouldn't be the goal, and it can come with regret. Now, if you're a collector that has 1,000 watches and or purchase a whole bunch of watches, and that makes you happy, that's cool. That's not what we're talking about here. That's totally fine, but it's not for everybody. And I know a lot of people get caught up on not wanting to buy too quickly or regret the purchase that they had, and or have a type of feeling where it's like, man, I wish that I can appreciate the watches that I have longer without feeling the need to just get the next one. So that's the whole premise of it. Creating watch content. So obviously that answer of me doing these kind of things, right? Making videos and being creative in being able to do the reviews and, editing those videos and making connections. That's not going to work for everybody, and I understand that, but that's also been something that's worked for me. It's another reason why I'm on here doing this, is because it also allowed me to expand on the hobby of watch collecting and get away from just only purchasing watches. And this has been almost, if not more, satisfying than actually purchasing a watch. Like just connecting and being creative and, just diving deep and getting a better understanding, because you got to do your homework when you do things. That's just been my kind of take on it. You know what I mean? Creative content, really reflecting on the collection. So yeah, the last one is a little tacky, but listen, man, it's been something that I've done, and it's something that I've talked about before, but just Look, I got up to 40 watches, and I'll be honest with you guys, I forget sometimes. Like, I'll get excited about something and forget that a watch that I already have has a feature either very similar or actually has it, right? So sometimes we just need to take a step back and say, okay, let me just appreciate my collection. Let me think of themes for me to wear my watch. Like, I thought of a theme, I'm only wearing watches that were gifted to me. I'm only wearing watches that are whatever, that are only mechanical, whatever it may be. Because if you guys are anything like me and you have a collection that's up there in the 40s, then you have a lot of watches to really appreciate and reflect on. And maybe you haven't risked a watch and you're not connecting to it, but if you find a different way to connect to it by changing out the strap or just giving it a little bit of a redesign, a different look to it, may help you to connect to it and really take some time to actually reflect on your watch box. You know what I mean? Had to switch accounts to give another thumbs up. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you. So I've had 3 watch boxes at this point. I've taken the time to line the watches up, and the way I like to put my watches in my watch box, I don't know how you guys are, but I like to put the watch either above or next to it. That's kind of relative to it. So like a diver and a diver is the cheapest example, but I have my Santana logos, they're all together. All of the G-Shock, like the 1600, the Royale and all that, all those mods are together. All the watches that were gifted to me, like everything, every mini section has its own theme, and that's the way I kind of roll with it. And you know, I kind of like to double up. I forgot what's sitting underneath. Yeah, just along that thing. Like if it's a minimalistic dial, that's another example. I have my vintage Yannico. I believe that's sitting right above my Movado Bold. So just stupid things like that to help you know the organization of your watch box. And I'm sure most of you have a system already, but the point is that through your system, take time to appreciate what you have. And I go to the furthest extent of, before walking up to my watch box to choose the watch for the day, I like to pretend like I'm at an AD that has micro brands, whatever. And guess what? They have every watch that I like. Hopefully, if I still like the watches that I still have. But I also realize that even the watches that I'm not necessarily very connected to at this point, I still need more time to connect to them, to really think over, do I want to give this watch away? Do I want to move on from this watch? I'm not quick to that, because too many times and too often I've seen a lot of people regret giving away a watch that they will otherwise now miss. And if they had to take some more time in order to do it. Now there's another way around that, right? I've given a few watches to my brother. So if ever I get that regretting feeling, I'll just borrow the watch from him and make sure that that's true. Because I've heard stories of people buying, selling the same watch and just being in and out of it. And I get it. Nobody else is gonna understand. I'm yelling in a park and everybody's probably looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, what is this guy talking about watches? What is he talking about? But I get it, I understand it. We all are rather enthusiasts, and I can understand how a person could get to that place. All I'm saying is, if you took a step back and you tried to just appreciate what you already had and try to think of it in a different light, in a different angle, whether it be changing either the angle of how you're storing them, or buying watch bands, whatever the case may be, it may change the way you feel about it altogether. I have all my Swiss-made watches all together, my G-Shocks all together, so on and so forth. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of, I don't have it organized to that degree, Oscar, but I do pairs in 2, right? Like there's a sister and there's a brother to every watch, or 2 brothers, however you want to look at it. But I have watches that hang out together and they kind of talk to each other in some way or fashion. And that's the way that I like to organize it. Aside from my custom watches with the Santana dial, they're all together, they're all in one separate, and then everybody else is kind of just hanging in with each other and stuff like that. Oscar, that's a great idea when I get to that point. Yeah, I mean, of course, Space, that's more so, and that's more towards somebody who has that many watches. If you're still early on, Space, or if anybody listening to the playback on this and you're not there yet, heed my warning. Listen, look at the chat, hear what I'm saying, learn from our mistakes. And I was watching Travis's live, and he was talking about regret, right? And I don't necessarily, there are watches that I'm not connecting to, and there are watches that I'm probably most likely going to give away, right? Because I like to give away my watches. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily regret them. And I don't necessarily look back and say, man, I wish I was slower moving when listen, you did whatever you did in the past at that time, it was right, and it was right for you. And I'm talking more in general in life. Whatever you did in the past is what you did. It was the right time, the right place, it was the right answer for you, even if it was a mistake, even if it wasn't something with the end result that you necessarily want for yourself now. Let yourself off the hook. Like, don't ever regret anything. Don't ever make yourself have that bad feeling and that bad notion, because at the end of the day, it's human nature. Buying watches too quickly in the beginning is a common thing that happens to everybody. It's the reason why I talk about it so often. Even going back to my early videos, I talked about it because, I would like somebody to heed our warning. Buy what you want, buy as many as you want, whatever's right for you. But if you're looking for that kind of advice, which I wish I had somebody that I came across that was saying what I'm saying, I probably would have purchased maybe half or maybe like 75% of what I purchased, and I would have cooled it and been like, okay, I gotta slow down and I really gotta read up on watches a little bit more before I'm in this for the long haul. But that's the thing. When you first start collecting, you don't even know if you're in this for the long haul. You just know that you're excited. You know that there's different kind of, models, and there's different kinds of styles that just are shiny to you and you just want to throw them in. So I kind of get that too. DMW, your ear must have been ringing because we were talking about you earlier. What's going on, brother man? Thank you for popping in. Let me catch up on the chat. I read that. Oscar is a great idea for one. Yeah, I read that. I love your content, but when you're going to collect, when you're going to collecting shirt with sleeves, bro, I promise you. Let me look around before I say it. I'm in a public, bro. What are you doing to me? It's hot, bro. It's a nice day, and we don't have too many. In the beginning of this live, I was saying like I'm saying goodbye to summer with this watch. I thought today was the last day of summer. I think it's actually officially tomorrow in New York. But I'm saying goodbye to summer, man. I got the sun's out, guns out. What do you want to do, man? It's hot. I was playing handball just before, just so you guys can see real quick. I don't know if you can see the handball courts. Hold on. See the handball courts right there? I was just playing the handball courts, trying to get, bro, I'm out of shape too. Off topic. I might have to slow down with the content and get some exercise in, man. I played one game. Man, it was like I ran a marathon. So don't let this sleeveless shirt fool you. Your boy is out of shape right now. And I laugh, but it's not a funny thing, man. I got to start taking my health very seriously. I got to start working out. And that was a good awakening, good reminder that I got to do that. So I may have to peel back on the content just a little bit and focus on that gym life and stuff like that. But yeah, man, thank you for pointing that out, that I don't have sleeves on my shirt, but that's the reason why. And I'll be honest with you, man, to keep it a buck, I don't really like the V-necks that I have. They don't fit right on me. I've gone up and down in weight so much that I don't really like them, so I'm kind of abusing the sleeveless shirts right now. But yes, I have I have shirts with sleeves on it, I promise. As a matter of fact, for work, all I wear is polo shirts. Believe it or not, I don't wear sleeveless shirts to work. Mastering, where we at? Yo, JP, okay, you guys say KP, troll level 100. Yeah, man, I love it. I got thick skin, man. You can troll me all you want. All love your channel. Also, like the takes on the homage watches as well. Thank you, man. Thank you. I know it's a slippery topic, man. It's a very slippery topic, but I believe that I got to get behind what I really believe. And homage watches, I know it's very controversial. But at the end of the day, I don't care, man. I don't care if you don't like the fact that I talk about homage watches, I present them, I talk highly of them, because I collect what I collect, and I believe in what I believe in, and I've had hands-on experience. I'm coming from only 4 to 5 years of collecting, so I've got that fresh look on things. And I can tell you what, man, and I've seen I've seen this transpire. I've seen on channels people, I want to say in my opinion, are influenced by what people are saying about homage watches, and therefore they kind of like jump all over saying, yeah, they're ripping off the brands and they're this and they're that and they can't be this quality. And then I watch them get a homage watch and they're like, because now they already put it out there in the internets that homage watches are the devil. And now they got to go back and be like, yo, man, I got a homage watch in my hand and quality ain't that bad, man. Quality, it's still not a unique design. It's still, not its own thing, but the quality is not what I expected it to be. I guess after hearing so much back and forth, you expect the thing to fall apart in your hand. So it's even more of a shock value when you get it in your hand and you wind it, NH35, okay. And we spoke earlier about Chinese manufacturing and how they're improving. So the more time goes on, the more these homage watches are gonna be like, yo, you're gonna start seeing better movements from these mass-produced watches. I think here's what's gonna happen. You take a person like San Martin, who listens to the communities, who's already transitioning and giving us more of a unique design, opened up Zhengung. I don't know if you guys know this, sister company, considered more so in the micro brand space. And all they're focusing on so far, they have one release, they're working on another one, they release some stuff on Instagram. But they're only putting out their unique designs from Zhengung. And that's a sister company of San Martin. And that's because I believe that they've heard time and time again that this is a homage. So they're like, okay, cool. We're gonna open up a whole company. We're gonna do unique designs, and those designs are gonna be out there, right? And we'll see what side is up. And we saw that with the War Drum. They're already working on something else. The War Drum, good watch, but the lug to lug was crazy. It had too much of a flare out. There was no angle in it, or at least not enough angle. I liked it, but I could see where it went wrong as far as fitting on the wrists for the masses. If they would have shrunk it down, they would have gotten away with it a little bit more. But it was the first watch, and there's a lot more for them to come out. But the point is that San Martin has gone from where they are today, what you guys know of it, from the past, right? Now transition to a micro brand, all right, Zhengung. So you're gonna see a lot of people that are going to gravitate towards it because they're going to do things of that nature. They're going to come out with all unique designs. They're going to come out with Miyota movements in it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And when they're able to place the order of these watches in the thousands and thousands of dollars and they have the bankroll behind it, it's going to continue to be affordable. Now, it's going to go up a little bit in money, of course, because at day's end, the Miyota movements are going to cost more and the parts and stuff like that. But they're watching and they're moving and they're doing different things. So that's definitely going to happen. Sorry, guys, I'm catching up on chat now. Sky, as with any information media, your task is to give the information, whether people agree. Exactly, Space. Like, you can't try to get up on here and try to please everybody. Impossible task, right? So obviously, but also too, I tried to get up on here and not be swayed by the things that I've heard only. I try to get hands-on experience, because I know there's a lot of people that don't like to watch reviews on watches that they don't have in hand for that reason. Now, is that necessarily wrong all the time? Well, it depends. It depends on, okay, I'm gonna give you guys my opinion on the specifications and the design look, but as far as like in hand and in person type of feel, you can't really speak on that, right? Unless you actually had the watch in hand, whether it be in a show or not. But it's exactly it, Space. Like, I gotta give my opinion and I stand strong, and I kind of crack a smile later on because I actually watch people's opinion change. That I'm not gonna say they jumped on the bandwagon, and I'm not gonna say they were wrong for having the type of opinion that they had prior, because I get it. When you're going and you're consuming and they're like, okay, and especially when you find somebody that you trust on here, you're like, okay, they're on par almost all the time and they're saying this, so it must be true. But then they get a watch and they experience it themselves and they're like, man, that's weird because this watch isn't nearly as bad. So definitely okay. So you guys point out, let me catch up on time. What's your take on the Swiss tax? The idea that You pay just for Swiss location. Jack Mason, Texas company, released an upmarket Swiss version. Total. Yeah. So okay, I know all about that release. Jack Mason. Okay, so that move, that play, first of all, that's them listening to the community and also trying to elevate, knowing that that whole Swiss kind of subject automatically gives people a feel and a notion of higher value. So what did Jack Mason do? They said, okay, we want to take a watch, we want to redesign it, we're more mature now, we know what we're doing, we have the connections. So let's infuse that with a Swiss movement, and let's infuse that with what certain enthusiasts, right, are asking for. What do I feel personally about it? I'm okay with it, man, because here's the deal. It is what it is, right? Like if you're going after Swiss, it's kind of like anything else with a name behind it or a presence behind it. Like if you get Jordans, you don't expect to pay $50. And that is kind of slipping to like that luxury type of ideal. And it is what it is, right? Because we're not still talking about 10, 15 grand, right? It is a price jump. There is more to that watch than just the Swiss, right? There's the finishing, there's the design, there's their bracelet is phenomenal on there now. So obviously Jack Mason, or I think we got to call them Jacques Mason now, right? They're getting fancy with this stuff. So maybe it's not Jack Mason, maybe it's Jacques Mason now. But I love that they took that route because I can understand that even though I may not value that move as much as the next guy, I understand that a person in the microbrand space wants that. Clearly, there had to be enough people knocking on their door, and I can't think too small-minded about my only views and my only opinions, you know, about what direction somebody takes, because Jack Mason's not building Skylar Santana a watch. They're plugged into the microbrand space. They do their due diligence to stay up to date with us through the watch communities, through the meetups, pour a lot of money into just having ears for the company, and then give us what we want. So I'm completely fine with that move, man. And I'm fine with that Swiss tax move that anybody does for their watches moving forward, if that's what they feel more comfortable in doing. Maybe you feel like doing a Miyota with a higher, you know, caliber movement, or maybe you want to skip that step and go to Swiss. It's just giving a broader option for your customers. And I'm sure there's people that are in between that were okay with where they were and are also appreciative of, you know, the watch that they're presenting, regardless of it being a price point thing, right? I'm not mad at all. Now, would I feel funny if now that that's all they're doing moving forward? And I know that that's most likely not the move from Jack Mason. Obviously, they have a lot of pride in what they've done and how they've done it. Texas pride and all the models that they did. I think that it's just going to be different catalogs for fitting different molds and making everybody happy. That was a long-winded answer, but you asked it. All right, so let me catch back up to chat. Jack Mason, Texas company. I think I answered that question. I think I fully answered that question, right? The idea that you pay just for the Swiss location. Yeah, so it is what it is. It is what it is. You can have an opinion by it, and you can show your support or lack thereof by not purchasing the watch. It is what it is. Now, if they only did that, that's kind of where I would be like, I don't know. KP, it's undeniable that Swiss made denotes a certain level of quality. Also, the Swiss cotton manufacturer is simply more expensive. Exactly. It's like the same thing me saying, okay, we collaborated with Jordan. Normally our shoes are $75. Well, if they're doing a collaboration with Jordan, that watch, I mean, that shoe ain't gonna be $75 no more. And it is what it is. And we're seeing a lot of infusion in different ways, even with Studio Underdog doing that collaboration. That watch is a lot more. It's the same kind of idea. I'm all right with it, man. It is what it is. Maybe one day I'll be more interested in the Swiss movements, and I'll make that transition, and I'll be ready for the watch. But who knows? Yes, but They were so awesome. Texas seems to go away from their roots. Don't look at it that way. KP, by all means, look at anything however you want to look at it. But here's how I'm looking at it. You have your roots and you have the way that you came up, and that's like your base level, right? But just because you came out with one watch, and even if they come out with more watches that are Swiss infused, it doesn't necessarily mean that now, okay, we're gonna forget about all where we came from. It's just like, no, we're leveling up, and this is the next step, or at least this is the next step that we want to take because we've heard it from enthusiasts, right? Jack Mason, I'm sure, didn't make that move on their own loins. Like, they didn't just randomly wake up one day and said, yeah, let's do this. They probably heard a lot of people, hey man, you know, I really like the Swiss movements. I have a lot of value in that. I love your designs. It'd be so sick if you took the Swiss movements and combined that with, you know what I mean? But I by no means feel like they're gonna forget about their roots. I may be wrong, but I'd be shocked. I'm pretty sure Jack Mason is still gonna be Texas pride. It's still gonna be the way that they were manufacturing their watches. Switzerland is known for their watches, marker, and very well made. Yeah, it's automatic. Second you say Swiss, and listen, there's a very, very big controversy with Swiss versus Japanese movements. We all know what happened with the quartz crisis. If you guys, I'll say this, I don't wanna start no but if you do this and you look at we all know the quartz crisis, but even if you look at Grand Seiko and the Japanese movements and you look at their innovations, how they're combining quartz and mechanical stuff, dude, they're doing some stuff, and the accuracy and the finishing, like, it's not talked about as much because the Swiss movements, the Swiss made, the Swiss, all that stuff has been king of the luxury space. But if you guys get underneath that and do some homework on Japanese movements and what Grand Seiko has done from the beginning with the quartz crisis, their movements are dangerous, very dangerous, and in a good way, and very interesting, very interesting. I'll let you guys do your homework on that. I don't want to spread too much of my own opinion, but there'd be a time and place for that. And their accuracy since way long ago, shit, more than 60 years ago. Hold on, I'm catching up on chat. Market and their accuracy since long ago, I would say more than 60 years ago. Fair, they made their name as a Texas company, would be like a Swiss Casio. Yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with branching out. In fact, you need to. If you want to expand your market in a market that is already, we talked about how there's like a 10-to-1 ratio or 20-to-1 ratio of a watch enthusiast, of a person who's gonna buy your company and make a whole collection out of it. You know, you have to really diversify, and I think that they diversified, but they also stayed true to their own natural designs when doing it. They didn't go too far off. They just gave that Swiss innards and that Jack Mason outwards, if you will. Lots of Swiss watches have the cases and bracelets made in China. Only the movement is Swiss assembled. Yeah, JP's dropping gems. It's very, very true, man. There's a lot of infusion. There's a lot of people doing a combination of the two. You'd be shocked to know how many companies are actually doing that. So it's not always 100% Swiss made. Only needs 60% of production to label it correct, exactly. So, you know, don't think for a second that you're always getting 100% Swiss and that's the end of the conversation. There's a lot of people that are allowed to get away with needing only 60% and cater to that kind of crowd, if you will. You know? Exactly, Fax mods. I'm doing the same, calling them made in Canada. Exactly. Hey, listen, man, you gotta play the game, baby. You gotta play the game. Listen, here's the deal, man. And we're nerds. I almost cursed. We're nerds, man. We're nerds about this thing. But here's the deal. All that really matters is it a good watch, right? Is it a good watch? Are you able, if we're talking about microbrand, are you able to give it enough to give it your little spin on it? And or if you're still new and you're more of like, okay, so if you're a new micro brand, most of them start off as more of a homage feel. When you get bankroll, now you're able to go after a different kind of design altogether where it feels more like your brand. Like, they're like, okay, this is only a Studio Underdog watch, and Studio Underdog, there's no watch, there's no time where you're gonna see a Studio Underdog and not know that that's his watch. I feel like that's the ultimate goal for a micro brand. So once you get the bankroll for that, then you could start really zoning in on that, because that's very important. But the first thing, homage, not homage, Swiss, not Swiss, do you make a good watch? If you make a good watch, you're off to a good start, right? And then from there, expand and find what your little niche and what your real look is, and then go from there. Loopholes, hey man, loopholes, it is what it is. Cool-ish. Do you ever think you can have just one watch? Do I think that's a, come on man, what kind of question is that? Do I ever think, all right, you want me to be real with you? I don't want it to get dark. But I think that when I'm ready to move on from my Earth suit, I think at that point I'll have everything, either whatever I think needs, I don't know, how do I answer this question? Everything's gonna be allocated to my next of kin, and at that point I'm cool with being like, okay, this is my only watch. Other than that, right now, I don't think I could ever be a one watch guy. Just because I don't want to. Could I be one? Yeah, gotta, you know, there's watches that are beater watch. Like I could narrow down a watch and say, this is probably the only thing that I need. I could. I would never want to, okay? And I think that at that point, because I heard somebody talking about this, and I'm like, you know, that's a real life thing for certain people. And they're at the point where they have to think about all of their money and all of their worldly possessions. It's around that time. I think at that point I'll probably have that one watch and give the rest away, and then, okay, when you can have, or maybe I want to be buried in that watch. Maybe I'll be buried in the G-Shock, all white, you know what I mean? But I think that answers the question. Only the USA is so strict on the label of made in USA. Yeah, you know how it is, man. USA wants facts, man, and they really they dive deep with that. They're like, okay, you know what the regulations are, right, sir? You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Big no for me. Yup. Yes, they are space. That's a no for me. Most of you saying no. Yeah, man, to keep it 100, man, I couldn't do it right now. I definitely couldn't do it right now. I already had plans, even though right now in my collection, like, I know that I'm going to be where I am probably for a little while. I'm going to slowly graduate my watches, and it's going to be most likely independent brands, because in my eyes, independent brands are luxury for the values that I really care about. And, you know, slowly but surely, I might cap the amount of watches that I have, and that might be 50, that might be 60, that might be 70. I don't know yet. But I know that I slowly want to transition what I have currently over years and years of time with micro brands, and because, you know, I have such a, you have such a broad range with micro brands, all the way from super affordable to complications to well-made, and listen, I'm beating a dead horse. Micro brands are luxury for me, and, you know, I will slowly transition pieces in my collection for that. So my cap, listen, who knows? My cap might be 50, it might be 100, it might be 500. Who the heck knows at this point, right? We're just having fun. But all I know is that whatever I decide on at point in time, it's going to be what I ultimately feel comfortable with. I also feel like I am graduating and learning. I feel the same way. Exactly. I think in the beginning, I think after year 2 or 3, I'm now in like 4, pushing 5. I thought I knew stuff, and then stuff just became more and more uncovered, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, woo. That's the good, bad thing. The good, bad thing about this is that there's so much information out there, but then the good thing is that there's so much information out there. So if you're gonna need to talk about something, watches have an endless kind of conversation. But at the same time, there's so much information, and you don't need all of it to decide on what you want next. But there is a humbling factor after 2-3 years where I was like, all right, I know for sure that there's going to be a point where I'll feel comfortable making my next move, but I'm not there yet, and that's okay, and I need some more time. And once I uncovered micro brands and seeing what their diversity was, seeing what kind of values that they can put into the watches, how they listen to the community, how they implement it, and everything else, and plus one company could give you so many options, I'm like, whoo, okay, gotta slow down, man. I gotta do some homework. I gotta do some research. So in the meantime, let's do some connections with them. Let's do some interviews. Let's do some research. Let me talk to the community about it and stuff like that. So that's pretty much where it's at. So with that being said, we are now well past an hour. Sheesh. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the conversation. I think we're gonna end it off here. I appreciate you guys for logging on. And please don't forget, it all started with a watch. No matter where your watch collection journey takes you, no matter how you decide to collect, you guys are all welcome on this channel and in this community, as you should be. I appreciate you guys for joining in on this live and in the conversation, and I'll see you guys in the next one.